So today I'm gonna take the front grille back off and clean it up, and then paint my brackets. I may pour 15 the front grille as well. That'll be a good one to pour 15. And I'm gonna lift the sides of the tub and then put the armors because they need to be slid in between the tub and the body mounts. And then I'm gonna put a seat on, steering wheel on, and start wiring the engine.
Merch shed to us. That's a nice merch shed. But can you tell us what happened? Pardon me, sir. Can you tell me what happened?
Pardon me, sir. Did you see what happened?
I wasn't.
Oh, they left us the rug. Hey, there's no cracks. I see no cracks. You did good.
Hey, we've been taking it easy on the Jeep. We haven't unloaded it yet. You're here fixing Matt's mistake. This guy will have it fixed up. Maybe it'll be still shiny.
And this is kind of a new guy, but we've adopted him and we love him. His, I'll drive mine, and John will be trying to film it. So the Bronco will have to do.
There you go.
Alright, here we go down the hill.
That's that bit.
And Mike. And gets a bit jumpy.
One more time. This one should be easier.
That might be the easiest front axle removal I've ever witnessed.
One bolt. So I did a boo-boo. There must have been like a couple of nuts that they were longer than the others. I didn't notice, and one went right through the tub there. So oopsie. Try to be fucking careful with this guy. So, yeah. It's too late, I didn't notice. So, it's flush now with the carpet. Won't see the difference. So armor is in. Slowly getting there. So I had to relocate the ECU outside the cabin. There's very few wires that's actually gonna cross the firewall, so I figured it would be much easier if I just keep that ECU on this side of the firewall. So right now I have all the wires passed on this side, and then I'm gonna start working my way around and wiring everything. How do you put this in there? Like this. So the ECU is plugged. All the sensors are plugged except for the map, the air sensor, and fuel pressure sensor as well. And battery and ground hasn't been connected, obviously, because I need the brackets. I just painted them, so I'm gonna mount them tomorrow and then put the battery tray on there, mount the battery, and start wiring the battery and the power harness to the starter, and figuring out how to connect the generator, the alternator to the harness as well. It's connected, but I'm sure there's a ground that goes to the alternator to the body or the frame. So I'm going to look that up. So I got everything on this side. On the other side of the firewall here, the only things that I passed the pedal, the cable for the pedal, the cable for the CAN sensor or the CAN communication here, and then I have the IO, and I have another cable where it goes to the IO as well. It's for I believe it's coolant temperature. Yeah, coolant temperature here, and oil pressure, and that's it. So I was able to go through the wall there. I poked a hole into the big plug. Not sure you can see it here. Poked a hole like in the big plug here, and then I was able to use this plug to feed two wires through as well. The IO wires were just like had no connectors on them, so I was able to thread them into that little hole there. The pedal and the CAN had to cut the boot there and feed them through the boot. Seats are in. The steering wheel is in. So I'm not gonna lie, sitting there, feel very nice. Feels like I make progress. Gives a little bit of motivation to put in the bank to keep going on the project. Got my bracket painted, so today I'm gonna install the battery and rig it, also the starter, and see if I can get any signal, and then see if I can plug the VCDS and get some reading out of the Volkswagen ECU. So that's the battery tray. There is 4 holes that holds the battery tray. I removed the little retaining tabs, like the tabs that you can actually screw in them, because I've found that those are super flimsy and they always fail at some point in time. So I'm gonna put rivet nuts in the holes, find bolts that actually match them, and then it's gonna be the setup. So I just put the rivet in, M8, a few M8 bolts laying around. Yeah, bolt that in there. Call it a day. So I've been working in the electrical for the past hour, and then I changed my lugs so it can accommodate like for there's an integrated bus in those lugs, so I can connect multiple grounds to the same lug. I got the same for the lead. So this one has two ends coming out. One's going on the body, which is already hooked up over there. This one I believe goes on the engine. I'm not sure like where to ground it yet, so I just attached it to the exhaust port there, just for testing. I'll look it up for the proper ground for the TDI. Now the lead. There's one section that goes to the actually there's two wires on it, one that goes to the starter and one that go to the bus for the breaker, and then on the same lug there's a wire that goes to the alternator, which I'm not sure where to plug exactly yet, so I'm gonna need to research that. Though there's a cable that comes from the breaker box. I believe there'll be the hooked up to the ignition, so it closed the loop and starter engage. And there was like a block where they were fused together on the TJ, so I just used the grinder and split them, because on the starter the lug is a little bigger. The nut that it goes on. Focus. Yeah, see the lug is a little bigger than this connector there. So I have two big lug on the starter. I'm not sure if you can see them right there. So I'm just gonna cut this cable and recycle one of my cable that has a bigger lug on it and connect that to the starter, and I'm gonna be done on the battery side. Now after that I'm gonna move to the alternator side. Okay, so it turns out I had it all wrong. So there's only the battery lead that connects to the starter. And then I guess when the solenoid inside is energized, it closes the connection in between the two leads and start the starter. The other lug, I thought it was a ground, but it's not. There's no ground on a starter. It's grounding to the engine. So as long as your engine's grounded to the like to the frame or to whatnot, then you should have conductivity. You should have conductivity. The problem is the starter is mounted on a aluminum plate, and then I'm not sure it's, I think because it's I'm not sure of the finish on it, if it's actually conductive. Anyway, I didn't take any chance, so I grounded the assembly from the starter to the frame here. So I actually have my starter grounded. The frame is grounded right here through the battery, and yeah, so the only other thing I would need to do is ground the engine. If that just ground the starter once the starter disengage, because the gears will be touching when it engage and disengage, then it'll be cutting the conductivity. Then I would have a ground problem, so I need to ground the engine to the frame. It's mounted on rubber mounts all around, so I'm not sure. I just want good ground, so I'm just gonna like physically ground it with a cable as well to the frame, beside that cable as well. I don't want to have like any grounding issue. I want everything to be solidly grounded, and in the case I'm just proofing everything So it's good to have redundancy regardless. The ground is connected to the tub and to the frame. The lead, there's one cable that comes from the ECU. There's one cable that comes from the breaker box, that goes to the breaker box actually, and that one lead that goes to the ECU, and one lead that goes to the starter. I have one cable that goes to the breaker box and to the lead actually, and this one comes from the alternator, so it's plugged on the back of the alternator. The starter, I didn't know if that would be grounded because I know aluminum is conductive. I think it doesn't matter if it's anodized, I think it will be conductive anyway. But to make sure, I still grounded the alternator. I just put a ground from one of the bolt on the solenoid to the frame to make sure it was grounded. I grounded the alternator. This cable right here, it's ground coming from the alternator and grounding to the body. That bolt is grounded to the tub and it's bare, so it makes contact with the body even though the bracket's painted and the tub is painted. And that ground is coming from the fast forward harness. Harness wise, all the sensors are plugged except for G39, which I believe it's a sensor that goes on the exhaust. I don't have that sensor yet. I have the map connector that's not connected because I haven't done the intercooler section of the engine as well. And I think that's it. Sensor wise, that's all I don't have connected. All the respective wires being routed to their respective sensors. I'm still gonna need to figure out how to connect the N75. I have my vacuum tubes here. I know it's three-way electronically controlled with a T section in the vacuum line, and I believe this one goes to the airbox on the stock setup, so I'm going to figure that out. Also, I have intake there to that cover, engine cover. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. I need to look into that. And right now what I want to do is, those are the lead from my fuel pump. So 2 are the power for the fuel pump, 2 are the sensor for the fuel level that goes to the IO. So not sure which one is which yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do some troubleshooting as well. And then I'm going to pull the battery, hooked it up, see if I can hear the fuel pump running. I'm going to pull the fuel feed off and I'd feed it to a tank, make sure I have it like hooked up properly and the fuel goes through the proper line as well. And then, but before that, I want to put power on this for the first time and see if I hear a click into the fuse box, because those fuse are the fast forward fuse. 2 are fuel pumps, 1 is glow plug. So yeah, I want to make sure I hear like clicking out there, and then I need to figure which terminal I should use in the back for fuel pump to connect my fuel pump leads there. So let's do that. Moment of truth. Here goes nothing. And if I put power on, nothing. Nothing. So out of the 4 wires that come off the fast forward harness that needs to be plugged in, so you have the clutch, you have the ignition, 12-volt ignition that can be put together, which I did. You have the 12-volt sense and exciter, alternator exciter. It is right here. The 12-volt switch with ignition battery, the output alternator warning light exciter circuit, the clutch that can go with the 12-volt, and the brake light. So today I'm going to try to figure the alternator exciter part. Also, when I crank, I have nothing, even though I am hooked up to the alternator with the crank wire, which is this one. So I think I'm probably missing one of the plug that goes to the engine, and then probably make that wire live when I crank, because right now there's nothing. So I'm gonna try to figure that one out too. The plug that goes out to the engine harness is there, so I might try to find the pin that goes 12-volt when I crank. It's all a little bit hard to figure and to do all at the same time, because you have to monitor the feed out of the wire with the voltmeter, and then engage the clutch, crank, keep the leads on whatever pin you're looking for. Yeah, it's a little tedious, but slow and steady. Not sure if I went through that already, but I actually unthreaded all the harness for the TJ, and now I'm hooking up all the sensors that I need for the TJ. I have an issue where I'm cranking the engine and nothing's cranking. The breaker doesn't even engage, and I'm able to jump it. If I jump those 2 wires, this one is the signal for the, this guy is the signal for the engine starter, but nothing's happening when I crank. Although this one actually activate when I crank it, so I can jump it from there to there and have the engine cranking. But ideally I would like to have like the harness hook up properly, so have the right cables or the right wires doing what they're supposed to, so down the road if I want to use everything that comes from the TJ harness, then it will work properly. I don't have to troubleshoot every single time I want to use something. So that's it for that. I got a bunch of parts, so I'm gonna try to start hooking stuff around the engine as well. I was able to crank the engine, of course, though yeah, because I'm cranking, and the couple of wires that I have on the fast forward harness are not hooked up yet. I don't have the fuel pump actually activating on the fast forward loom. So I think if I hooked up all the sensors for the transmission, and I plug the 4 wires on the ignition plug, I think all the wires, I can locate them on the ignition plug on the front. I finally found the ignition plug diagram in the Wrangler repair manual, and I think I can all plug them in there, and I should get everything I need for the fast forward harness at least. I got my pressure sensor for the fast forward harness. I need to plug that in as well. It's 3 wires, I believe. Yep, 3 wires. So I'm going to need to figure out which color does what, and then how to translate to the one I bought, and then hook that up. So a little bit of work to do. Let's get at it. So I've been troubleshooting the wiring for a couple of days here, trying to figure where everything goes, trying to keep like the setup as stuck as possible so I can recoup all the features once everything is wired up. And one problem I'm trying to troubleshoot here is the glow plug stays on even though when the ignition is off, and then I thought it was my wiring was not done properly, so I spent a lot of time double checking everything, but apparently it's normal. So let's test it out. Apparently it takes 5 to 20 seconds, so let's do it. So we're gonna do ignition on. Just heard the glow plug relay closing. We can hear the glow plug buzzing actually, and the breaker is lit up. You can see over there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn the ignition off, start a timer, and stopwatch. Okay, and then off. Start. Just make sure I'm gonna pull the key right out. So that's a long time to wind down. I'm gonna wait a minute here. Keys right out. Keys right out. Can still hear the buzz, and the glow plug relay is still on. And now it's been 1:30, so I think there's something wrong with it. So, and to shut it off every time, I need to pull the ground off. So I guess I'm not done troubleshooting. Also, my fuel pump relays doesn't seem to be kicking when I put the ignition on either. Not sure what's going on. I have everything grounded. Engine's grounded. Tub's grounded. Frame is grounded. Harness is grounded. Starter's grounded. Alternator's grounded. Not sure.